What's going on, and welcome to the NBA DFS Q&A show. My name is Tom Vecchio. I'll be here for the next 30 minutes taking your questions about tonight's 11-game NBA slate. Absolutely loaded, plenty of options across the board. Let's just jump right in. We have just a revolving cycle of injuries that we have to pay attention to today. Players being ruled out due to COVID protocols, players being ruled out due to just regular injuries. We're getting plenty of value in certain spots. So there's plenty to go through. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. Let me know. We can talk through some betting, some teams I'm already on tonight. I'm on the Knicks tonight. I am on the Celtics tonight. The Bulls were plus 2.5, and they opened up. I got them at plus 2.5, which I think is just a line that is a little bit insane, considering the Bulls are fully healthy. They're at full strength, and the 76ers are rolling with a backup squad. And I was just shocked to see that plus 2.5 line. So I grabbed the Bulls. I'm on Paul George, the over on his points, rebounds, assists combined. That's sitting at 42.5. I took the over on that. I took the over on Franz Wagner, sitting at 17.5, I think it was, for his points, rebounds, assists combined. Took the over on that. I think he's playing really well for the Magic. Obviously, you can use him in DFS. In terms of the value on tonight's slate, because there could be a good amount of it, I know a lot of people will be looking directly to Drew Eubanks for the San Antonio Spurs because we have Jakob Poeltl ruled out due to the COVID protocol. Eubanks is $3,700. Of course, he's been playing a limited role to start the season as a rotational player, but he has been effective when Jakob Poeltl has been off the court. He was effective last season, and frankly, the matchup is amazing going up against the Mavericks. They're the second worst team in terms of FanDuel points allowed to opposing centers tonight. Not tonight, again, this season, but second worst tonight. So going up against the Mavericks is an amazing matchup for Drew Eubanks. I know he'll be a very, very popular value play. Favorite teams to focus on stacking? I don't necessarily focus on stacking a whole lot of teams. Savan on YouTube is asking. I don't really focus on stacking teams too often. I don't mind taking like 2, maybe 3 players, but stacking teams is not necessarily the way I go about it. I don't mind gaining, extra exposure to a specific game, like Charlotte Golden State, I think has, multiple viable options, also has the highest over under on the board. So I wouldn't hate taking a few extra options, maybe 2 players from each team, but fully stacking teams or that sort of thing is not really the way I go about it. Favorite value options for today for cash. I think Drew Eubanks is just going to be super, super popular. We know that. I know a lot of people will be on Korkmaz as well for Philly. I wrote up both him and Eubanks on the value articles I do here at numberfire.com. Ken Birch, certainly had a big game the other night, and we saw him grab some minutes ahead of Achua for Toronto. I know he should be popular as well. So those are the 3 main ones that I'll be looking to. If we see Pat Beverly officially ruled out for Minnesota because he's listed as questionable, with D'Angelo Russell already listed as out. I know Jordan McLaughlin should be in for some time. Georges Niang is also going to be popular for Phillies. Should be out there for plenty of minutes just because their rotation is so much thinner. This lineup, I don't think this lineup is good or particularly great in any capacity. Embiid, you could say, is going to dominate the usage, but outside of him, Maxey can get hot, Seth Curry can get hot, but if Embiid comes off the court, sure, Drummond comes on. But then we're looking at a lineup with Drummond, Shake Milton, Monty Steibel, and 2 of these other players. Like, I don't think that line was particularly good. That's why I'm interested in the Bulls. That's why I already took the Bulls. I took the Bulls on the money line, and I took the Bulls at plus 2.5. So I'm on board with the Bulls. They're fully healthy. Like, they should not be road underdogs. Grim on YouTube is asking, start Mo Bamba, Yeda Yasmin, Mihailuk, Javonte Green, and Devontae Graham. I think all of those players are awesome. I also wrote up Yeda Yasmin. He was the other value player I wrote up today for the Cavaliers because Kevin Love was already out. Lauri Markkanen got ruled out today. So their forward rotation is going to be a little bit different. So Yeda Yasmin should be in there for 25 to 30 minutes, fully on board with him. I like Mo Bamba tonight. The Celtics haven't been particularly strong against centers, as we can see in the bottom 10 of the league, allowing 55.23 FanDuel points per game to centers. Also, we see Orlando, Orlando's not going to win a whole lot of games this year, but we see Orlando, playing a lot of these teams pretty close this season. So I'm fully on board with them. Mihailuk, like you said, Svi Mihailuk for Toronto. He stepped into some big minutes the other day with Scotty Barnes ruled out. And if he's going to be out there for another 25 to 30 minutes, I think the 34 is a little bit high for him. I think 25 to 32 or 24 to 30 is a little bit more realistic. I'm totally on board with him at $4,500, a player that can exceed value, play close to 30 minutes. We'd ideally like to see. Absolutely. Javonte Green, same situation, on board with that. Devontae Graham, I was big on Devontae Graham last night because we saw Brandon Ingram ruled out. He had a good game. We'd like to see a little bit more from him, especially with the extra usage with Brandon Ingram off the court. That volume of shots should just be, increased for Graham. And he didn't really do too much with it. I know he was dealing with that hip injury coming back. So maybe it was still bothering him a little bit. The matchup against the Kings tonight is obviously one that we can attack. So all these players that Grim listed, Mo Bamba, Yedder Osman, Svi Mihailuk, Javonte Green, and Devontae Graham, totally on board with literally all of them tonight, specifically liking Yedder Osman and Devontae Graham. Savan is asking teams to target tonight. I think we can be looking to Golden State. I think that Golden State Charlotte is going to be an awesome game for fantasy value. Has the highest over-under on the board, sitting at 226, which is by considerable margin compared to some of these other games. The value is clearly there for San Antonio. Value is there for going to the Philly options. I think that's fine. Going to Cleveland as well. I think this Clippers-Minnesota game is also one worth stacking. Close, what is it, a 1-point spread for... Where's Minnesota? It only has a 212 over-under. I'm liking the over on that. It has a close 2-point spread. I think we can be looking there for multiple options. Paul George is one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Thoughts on PG, Donovan Mitchell you mean point guard or Paul George, Davion Mitchell, from Sacramento. He's certainly seeing, where's Sacramento? I'm already on the game for Sacramento. Davion Mitchell. He's certainly seeing a good amount of minutes, which we love to see. The pure scoring is obviously variable for him. It's depending on who he is on the court with. Also, I don't like to see this, just a lack of peripheral stats. So, him being out there for 29 minutes and scoring, 0.5 or 0.7 FanDuel points per minute is certainly realistic if he doesn't get the shots going, combined with the fact that he doesn't fill up the stat sheet, which is something that I'm always hesitant to roster. I think he's fine in tournaments. You don't want him anywhere near a cash game just because the Kings are at full health. Halliburton and Fox and Hield and even Harrison Barnes this year are going to be, taking plenty of shots. So I like him in GPPs, but we do know that he has a very low floor just because if the scoring's not going for him, he's probably not going to be doing a whole lot when it comes to the peripheral stat category. Andrew on Facebook is asking, does Fox put up good numbers against New Orleans tonight to justify? I think he does. Last night, if we look to Fox last night, right? 4-15 from the field. That's a bad shooting night, right? It's a bad shooting night. You could say it's against a tough defense in Utah, and that's going to happen, right? 0-4 from downtown, just a bad night, and that's going to happen for every player. Going up against the Pelicans tonight, I'm totally on board with that. They're bottom 10 in the league when it comes to FanDuel points allowed per game to opposing point guards. I think that you could certainly look to De'Aaron Fox tonight. I know I have some interest in this game overall. It's going to be Fox, it's going to be Graham, and it's going to be Valanciunas again. I spoke about him on the Daily ISO, I should say, not the solo shot. That's the baseball podcast. The Daily ISO, our NBA DFS podcast I host 5 days a week. Big on Valanciunas tonight. So, yes, I like this game overall, and I think Fox is a fine option. Don't worry about one bad shooting game. That's going to happen on the road against a tough defense like Utah. So, yes, I am on board with Fox tonight. DJ on Facebook is asking, thoughts on Drew Eubanks and Jared Vanderbilt. So, big on Eubanks tonight. I think everyone will be just because, Jakob Poeltl confirmed out. If we look to San Antonio, if I can bring this up really quickly, if we look to San Antonio specifically, didn't want to do that. If we look to San Antonio when we see Jakob Poeltl off the court this season, I believe Eubanks is at, 1.11 FanDuel points per minute, and it's like a 3 or 4% increase in his usage. right? Eubanks is at 1.11 FanDuel points per minute. Not as much as an increase as I thought, but 1.11 FanDuel points per minute when Hurdle is off the court. So yes, Eubanks is absolutely a fantastic option. And then going to Vanderbilt for Minnesota. He's another option who could see some extra usage because we see D'Angelo Russell ruled out. I think he's fine if you're looking to get a few extra options in this game together. If you add in him and Edwards and Paul George and maybe Reggie Jackson from the other side, I don't love him as just a value play overall. I don't think he's amazingly awesome just because he's never going to be taking a massive volume of shots. The rebounds will certainly be there for him. Hopefully he grabs a few extra shots. So I'm like lukewarm on him to answer your question. I think he's fine. Like he doesn't really move the needle for me tonight. I'd be much more interested in Yedda Osman for Cleveland, especially given the matchup going up against the Trailblazers. I'm going to say they're dead last in the league before I click on small forward, if I remember correctly. They are. Portland is dead last in the league against small forward. So I'd be more interested at that somewhat of a close salary of going to Yedda Osman at $4,500 compared to Vanderbilt is just a power forward. Why can't I find Vanderbilt? He's $4,700, just a power forward. So I'd be more interested in Yedda Osman compared to Vanderbilt tonight. Upper on YouTube is asking about OG. Absolutely. He's been taking a really strong volume of shots for them. Double-digit field goal attempts in every single game is great, but high teens, low 20s, and obviously pushing towards 27 the other night is fantastic to see. Scotty Barnes is still out of the lineup. And realistically, they need like a reliable secondary scorer in that lineup behind Van Vliet. We get a few hot games from Gary Trent when he hits some threes. Svi Mykhailiuk can look good at times. Precious Achiuwa or Kem Birch, whoever happens to be there. But if they need that consistent secondary, bucket getter, it's going to be OG for the Raptors. So that shot volume against the Wizards for the Raptors is a matchup I love. Savannah is asking Eubanks for cash. Absolutely. I think he's totally going to be one of the chalkiest options at center. I think you can drop him in at power forward, more importantly, and then you could look to play Embiid or Valanciunas, or if you want to get up to the Joker tonight, all of those are viable options. So realistically, I would actually look to play Eubanks at power forward tonight and then roster one of these top tier centers. I still have a ton of interest in Valanciunas. Thoughts on Beasley? I think he's going to be a part of my player pool tonight. I just don't know how much. We're still waiting on that Pat Beverly news, if I remember correctly, because he will certainly be there. No updated news. I think Pat Beverly is a fine option as well tonight. I'm not like overly excited about him. I'd be more interested in just taking the extra value with McLaughlin if Beverly does in fact get ruled out. So this is a situation that I'm also monitoring, waiting for the Pat Beverly news, because it's not necessarily about Pat Beverly. It's about who he affects if he's going to be out of the lineup. So McLaughlin at $3,600 should be in line for the start if Pat Bev is ruled out. So I look to take him. I'll look to take a few shares of Malik Beasley, depending on the Beverly news. You're saying, yeah, Eubanks and Mykhailiuk. I think those are both great options. Melton or McDaniels tonight. Just straight up, I would take DeAnthony Melton. It's literally just a 1-for-1. I think they're both fine options overall, but I would take Melton 1-for-1. Do you mind ranking these value plays? Korkmaz, Niang, Eubanks, Mykhailiuk. So I would take Eubanks number 1, then Korkmaz, then Mykhailiuk, then Niang. The scoring upside, or the potential scoring upside for Georges Niang is going to be limited. I know he took 16 field goal attempts in this most recent game. I think that's a bit of an outlier. If he happens to have 11 or 12 tonight, I think that's a little bit more realistic, especially 9 3-pointers for him. I think is a little bit much. I'm not going to say he's not going to come close to that. 5, 6 I think is fine, but 9 and 16 I think is the upper limit of what we'll see from him. So I'm fine with Georges Niang tonight. I know I'll definitely have some shares of him in my player pool, but I would certainly look to have Eubanks and Korkmaz and Mykhailiuk ahead of him. So tonight's slate, the injury news is still up in the air. I would say we're waiting on Pat Beverly. Also going to be waiting on the John Collins news. As you can see, the forward position is just kind of a mess. And I guess Porzingis for some people, I'll be honest, I'm not rostering Porzingis in any capacity tonight. I don't care if he's missed like 5 games in a row now. If the Mavs come out and say Porzingis is good to go, no minutes restriction, he's going to be in the starting lineup, of course, no minutes limit on him, just going to be out there for whatever, I'm simply removing him from my player pool tonight. Just not a player that I'm willing to go back to. I know he had the ceiling game against Toronto, but even if he plays 35 minutes tonight, I could realistically see a world where he only puts up, 30 FanDuel points, and at $7,000, that's just not something I want to be a part of. I would rather take Draymond Green at just 400 more, get some exposure to that Charlotte Golden State game. And then John Collins is the real reason I came to power forward, not to harp on Porzingis, but John Collins, dealing with this questionable tag. I think that this is also a great game. Brooklyn and Atlanta to target. And as I mentioned before on the podcast, the Nets are just getting eaten up on the boards. They are getting destroyed. We're seeing these big games from, who was it? Antetokounmpo in the first game. We saw Bam Adebayo had a decent game against them. Whoever it was off the top of my head, I can't remember, but they're just getting eaten alive on the boards. And if John Collins is in, I think he's a great option. If he's out, I want whoever's going to be the value starting in their lineup. It could be, we could see Danilo Gallinari there, but Clint Capella could be like a lock for a double-double if John Collins is out. He probably could be a double-double candidate even if John Collins is in. So looking to, this mid-range at power forward. So Eubanks, I think, is certainly a great option tonight. Probably should be one of the best value plays on the slate. Who's my number one guy overall tonight? Regardless of, do you mean any position, any salary, top tier, upper on YouTube? If you could just clarify, who's my number one value play? Who's my number one, star tonight? Whatever it might be. One of my top value plays, I guess, would be Eubanks. He's probably my favorite value play on tonight's slate. My favorite, top tier player on tonight's slate is probably Paul George. I think getting to Eubanks is obviously really easy. If you look to, let's see, just dropping a few players, Osman, and if you want to pay up, I'm still big on Valanciunas. I mean, there's plenty of salary available, especially if we see Pat Beverly ruled out. Getting McLaughlin in there just opens up so much of over 7,000 per player remaining. 2 players under 4,000, 3 players under 5,000. Any position, my number one overall guy tonight would be Paul George. I think his ceiling is immense right now, given the volume of shots that he's taking is just absolutely crazy. 20 or more in 5 of the 6 games this season, 23 or more in, 4 of the 6 games this season. Absolutely amazing. And he's contributing plenty when it comes to the peripheral stat categories. This matchup is a 2-point spread against Minnesota. I think that's going to hit the over on its 212 total. I want to be looking here for plenty of options. Double-double, triple-double threat is what we're seeing from Paul George on a nightly basis. Again, I'll say that I took the over on his player prop for points, rebounds, assists combined. They're sitting at 42.5. I took the over on that, and this is a player that can realistically get there alone when it comes to points due to, I just want to say, the lack of offense we're seeing from the rest of the Clippers lineup. These are not players that are massive offensive threats for in really any team. And Paul George is going to be taking 20 to 25 field goal attempts every single game, unless it's a massive blowout in either direction and he gets pulled early. Paul George should be out there for 35 plus minutes, taking 20 to 25 field goal attempts, and should be scoring close to 30 points on a nightly basis. Do you like the thought process of picking 3 players from the 10 p.m. game, 2 from the 8, and 4 from the 7, so the score is spread out? Ultimately, whether you have all players in the 7 p.m. game or all in the 10 p.m. game, you still play the same amount of players, the same amount of minutes. So not something I'm on board with. If you want to get exposure to certain games where you think, Toronto and Washington or Atlanta and Brooklyn is going to be specifically high scoring and you want to grab extra options from that game overall, that's fine. But I don't space things out based on when the game is being played. If Charlotte and Golden State was in Charlotte and playing at 7, I would have the same interest in it, regardless of where it's or what time it's being played. Favorite small forward is going to be Paul George tonight. I think that's The upside he has is absolutely immense. Looking to pair him, I did mess around with some lineup builds, and looking to have both him and Durant in some lineups is something that I'm considering. Just getting some value here, going in 2 top stars, obviously going with the stars and scrubs build is something that a lot of people will be looking to do. You take some value with Mihailuk here, and you're working with, I want to say, a really solid lineup. Now, this is somewhat contingent on Pat Beverly being ruled out, so we get some deep value with Jordan McLaughlin. But listen, we're dealing with Valanciunas, who's showing a 50-point upside. Durant and Paul George have always held that type of same upside, and they can go for 60 or 70 if the game environment stays close. Some serious value with Eubanks, Yedei Osman, and Mihailuk. And then whoever you want to happen to roster a point guard or a shooting guard, you could certainly do that. So favorite small forward is Paul George tonight. Durant is just a half a step behind him. But I really do think that it's like a 1A and 1B scenario for the upper tier at small forward tonight. Plenty of value on tonight's slate. I think that the injury news that we're waiting on, John Collins for the Hawks is obviously important. Good game environment going up against the Nets. The Hawks are actually pretty low in the league when it comes to pace right now, sitting at 28th. And it's a decent step up against Brooklyn. We'd like to see both these teams play a little bit faster as the season goes on, providing a little bit more fantasy value. So we're waiting on the Collins news, waiting on the Pat Beverly news, waiting on, I think that's really it when it comes to like the major injury news. Porzingis, if that matters to you, we'll just get confirmation that Trae Young's going to play. Brogdon said he would play. That was a direct quote from him. Brandon Ingram didn't play last night against the Suns. They're on the second night of a back-to-back, so whether he plays or not could be an issue for some people if you're looking at roster Devontae Graham or Josh Hart again, who had a solid night last night, providing some value, or Valanciunas. I'm big on Valanciunas again, regardless if Brandon Ingram plays or not. Like, these are monster games from Valanciunas, and the matchup tonight against center is absolutely amazing versus the Kings. Dead last in the league, 64.24 FanDuel points per game opposing center. So I will be looking to Valanciunas regardless if Brandon Ingram is in or out of the lineup. And frankly, if Ingram does play and that makes Valanciunas just not as popular, I'm going to be even more interested, because I only play tournaments. So that's something to keep an eye on. We'll get confirmation on the 76ers starting lineup just so we know that we're getting, Korkmaz and Niang in the starting lineup. But and same thing with Yedei Osman stepping in for Lauri Markkanen for Cleveland. But overall, there's not too many injuries. I know it seemed like a lot earlier in the day because we are having players ruled out with Lauri Markkanen and whoever else it might, and Jakob Poeltl. So that turned us to Yedei Osman and Drew Eubanks. So looking to them would be certainly an option. Grim is asking Robert Williams or Precious Achiuwa. Honestly, I'd side with Robert Williams. We saw Achiuwa get Kem Birch started the second half ahead of him, and his minutes were certainly limited. And if this is going to be a trend going forward where maybe Precious Achiuwa starts and then we see Kem Birch come in and then take some of those minutes away from him, I don't want that in my lineup where you're limiting your ceiling. Meanwhile, Robert Williams, yes, he has this game. We don't want to be focusing on that, but he's going to be out there for more minutes compared to Achiuwa. So I would side with Robert Williams 10 times out of 10. Savannah's asking favorite point guard tonight. I would love to get plenty of shares of Steph Curry. I know I'll be looking to do so in plenty of lineups, but outside of him, I spoke about De'Aaron Fox a good amount. I'm totally on board with him tonight in that matchup against the Pelicans. Not worried about that defense. I think Kemba could go a little bit overlooked on tonight's slate. This matchup against the Pacers has, a 1-point spread? Right, a 1-point spread, 216 over under. Not really super concerned about the Pacers defense. Dead last in the league against point guards. I spoke about Kemba on the Daily ISO to kind of lead things off, if I remember correctly. So Kemba is also an option. I think that's just going to kind of go lost in the mid-tier where everyone's going to be paying up for one of these top stars, and then they're going to be taking value at other positions, so it might allow them to pay up twice at the point guard / shooting guard position. Plenty of people are going to look to Tyrese Maxey or Poole or Seth Curry or even Jordan McLaughlin if he gets ruled out or whoever it might be, and I think that's going to leave Kemba Walker going a little bit overlooked in the mid-tier, and I like what this matchup is showing me against the Pacers. Just they're terrible on defense to start the season. Like there's no other way to put it. Indiana's 5th in the league in pace, and New York is sitting at 11. So it really is an awesome matchup for Kemba. Do I focus on the late games for more upside and do stacks like 2-3, 4-3-2, stuff like that? Not necessarily. I just, I look to get the most value in my lineups with the players that are going to be projected for the most minutes, like Eubanks, like Osman, like Svi Mihailuk, whoever it might be. And then I look to pair them with the, top stars that I'm most confident in that night, whether it be the game environment, extra usage, someone like Paul George, who's just taking an insane amount of shots, all of that. So it's basically a lot of value and then stars. I mainly go with the stars and scrubs build on most nights if the slate and the value options will allow it. How do I feel about Dinwiddie tonight? I think Dinwiddie is a solid option overall. I'll be honest, I do not think he's going to be popular at all. I really don't. I mean, if you get another 35 points from him, are you going to be upset? Probably not. He probably will. If I had to take a guess, I would say under 10%. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up there. I just think that he falls into this weird mid-tier at point guard, kind of the same situation as Kemba, where everyone's going to be looking for value, or they're going to be spending all the way up at point guard, right? And everyone's going to be looking to get Steph Curry or Harden or Ja or whoever it might be, and this mid-tier, or even Murray, because the extra usage with Jakob Poeltl ruled out. So long story short, yes, I like Dinwiddie tonight. And the more I think about it and the more that I'm talking through it, I think he makes a better and better tournament play along the same lines as Kemba, where some of these options, like the pivot, everyone could be looking back to Devontae Graham again if Ingram is ruled out against Sacramento, and Dinwiddie is right next to him in salary, and he's just the natural pivot away from him and probably should just be far less popular. So yeah, Dinwiddie, I guess I'm talking myself into it as Grim brought up Dinwiddie. I'm just going to have more and more exposure to Spencer Dinwiddie tonight against Toronto, which is a matchup. Where's Toronto? Yeah, they're third best in the league to start the season, but I like the game environment overall. I spoke about multiple options from this game. So yeah, Trey is asking, how do I feel about LaMelo Ball? Totally on board with LaMelo Ball tonight. I know I didn't talk about too many Hornets specifically today, but this game environment, as I said, it has an over-under that's 6 points higher than the next closest game. I will be looking to get plenty of exposure to this game. His usage rate is highest on the team. He's producing plenty. Now, he is showing some amounts of a low floor at times. He still does manage to get there. I remember this game against Miami. I think I took the over on his points, rebounds, assist in that game. But he is showing a low floor when it comes to his shooting efficiency. 2 of 14, 3 of 14, just not good. Like there's no other way to put it. It's just not good. He does get hot and he's going, 12 of 22. He's taking plenty of shots from downtown. So I note these games, like I make a mental note that okay, he does have a low shooting floor at some points, but the volume of shots overall is still the same. And when I talk about De'Aaron Fox, he's going to have these bad games from the field shooting. Every player is going to. So I don't necessarily worry about them. I worry more about the overall, field goal attempts and his offensive usage. So I'm on board with LaMelo Ball. I would look to honestly have a few lineups that have both LaMelo Ball and Steph Curry in them. Try and create a rule in the optimizer that says have Steph Curry and LaMelo Ball. I know Savon was asking about stacking games or times. I like to have certain players in lineups if I think that game is going to hit the over. So I think that this game between the Hornets and the Warriors will hit the over. So when I make lineups, I want to make sure that I have some with both Ball and Curry in them, if that makes sense. Kenneth is asking, how do you feel about Orlando guys against Boston? Cole Carter, Boston defense has been bad. Boston defense has been bad. Where are they against centers? Bad against centers. They're also bad against power forwards. Really not worried about them too overall. Bad against shooting guards. So yes, the volume of shots from Cole Anthony is awesome to start the season. We have Cole Anthony right here. Great shot volume, really starting to fill up the stat sheet. For a young guard to do this on a consistent basis is awesome. So I love Cole Anthony tonight. As I said, I already took the over on Franz Wagner, the over on his points, rebound, assist prop. That was sitting at 17.5. I took the over on that. I think Mo Bamba is going to be in for a bounce back game compared to a couple slow games. So I'm on board with Orlando. Like I said, Boston, not this strong defensive team we had seen in years past. So I like Orlando tonight. Like I said, I think Orlando keeps it close. I don't expect Orlando to win a whole lot of games this season, but I think that's going to be kind of their MO. They have good DFS options. They can keep games close, but they may not end up losing a lot of those games. All right, so that does it for the DFS Q&A. I'll be back next Wednesday doing the same thing, taking your questions for 30 minutes. As always, you can find the podcast every day on the FanDuel Podcast Network. You can find it up on numberfire.com. You can follow me on Twitter at DFS_Tom. Until next time, good luck in your contests.